Good morning, Bucknutters, and welcome into the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by the legend himself, Tim May from the Columbus Dispatch. Tim, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much for that ridiculously over-the-top introduction.
Well, you know how I feel about you, my man. I think you do a great job, and you're the dean of the beat. I called Bill Curley the dean of Ohio State football recruiting. Well, you're the dean of our beat writers, and glad that you're taking time to share some knowledge with us here on the show. All right, first thing, Tim, there seems to be a lot of smoke with this Braxton Miller could transfer stuff. Chris Spielman came out last week and said it was his, quote, gut feeling that Braxton would transfer. I've had 2 Alabama reporters call me within the last day alone to ask me what I'm hearing about it. They both said they're hearing there is mutual interest between the Crimson Tide and Miller. Now, Tim, I've said for months I don't think Braxton is going to transfer. I'm going to stand by that. But I'm also not completely ruling out the possibility. What is your take, Tim? Might he transfer, or is this just like your fellow Bama fans hoping for a mini miracle?
Okay, Dave, it's a convoluted answer because there's no sure answer. The only guy who knows for sure is Braxton Miller. I have gotten no indication at this point. A lot of people have made up stuff or have heard people whisper stuff, and then they go with it, run with it. I've got no indication right now that he's actively looking around. I wouldn't be surprised if he did look, but I keep coming back to this. Number one, he's not going to be able to unleash the football in the sense of showing you he can throw the ball like a major college quarterback has to probably until late May or June if he stays on the schedule he's on. Number two, I keep going back to the fact that Urban Meyer really likes Braxton Miller. The other 2 guys, Cardale Jones and J.T. Barrett, have, obviously their portfolio is without question now. They bother defenses when they play. Braxton Miller scares defenses when he plays. And everybody knows that, including Urban Meyer. So he's not going to just be shunted to the side. As we all know, we heard after the spring game how Urban Meyer is going to determine who his starting quarterback is. Basically, he's going to go with analytics. I mean, the guy who's the most consistent, gets the job done on a regular basis through preseason camp is going to win the job, and he's going to know it because he'll be able to see a score every day. So that's what I call a fair shot for everybody involved, including Braxton. Number 4, whatever number it is I've gotten to now, where's he going to go where he knows the offense any better than he does at Ohio State, including some of the nuances they probably added in the spring where he was out there every day, watching from behind. Obviously, he was throwing a little bit on the side, but watching from behind. And then number 5, where's he going to go with more offensive talent around him than Ohio State? I mean, really, seriously, of the teams looking for proven talent and also rising weapons. And, and then number 6, the thing about Ohio State is if he sticks around at Ohio State, there's not going to be a pressure necessary for him to be the savior right off the bat, if you follow my drift. And if he goes somewhere like in Alabama or wherever, which I don't really see happening, they've got 5 quarterbacks vying for that job, he's going to pretty much be seen as the man riding in on the white horse. And it's not always greener on the other side of the fence, as we saw last year with the Coker kid who transferred from Florida State to Alabama. Alabama ended up using Philip Sims, who I think at one point was a defensive back in his Alabama career, and he ended up being their quarterback over Coker. And then, but then you got the other side where obviously Russell Wilson transferred in June of his extra year after finding out baseball probably wasn't going to be his big future, and ended up leading Wisconsin all the way to the Rose Bowl. Of course, they didn't beat Ohio State that year, but that's another story. So there are all kinds of reasons why he should and maybe shouldn't. I personally don't see Braxton shying away from a challenge. I mean, I think in his mind, he looks back to a year ago. Hell, all he has to just look back to August. He was the number one quarterback, and he hadn't done anything, this time a year ago. So I think I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Now, whether he's going to think all that same way, who knows? Braxton has never spoken on the record publicly about this yet.
Exactly. I'm glad you pointed that out. He had one opportunity to speak with us in the spring, and he declined, and that's his right. He's not a paid athlete that has to speak with the media. But the day we got a chance to speak with the quarterbacks, the SID asked him if he wanted to speak with us. He declined. We spoke to the other quarterbacks. We spoke to Tim Beck.
Yeah, let me interrupt you. The one time I did call him when the AdvoCare stuff came out because I wanted to, was trying to find out what was up, and I did speak for him briefly then, but he didn't want to talk about the other stuff. Of course, the AdvoCare stuff got straightened out evidently with the Big Ten and the NCAA. But past that, he has not been on the record about anything.
So you look at Tim May having Braxton Miller on speed dial. I would expect nothing less. Now the $1 billion question.
Hey, Bid, some numbers you have memorized. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead now.
I hear you. Oh, exactly. Like I have yours memorized. I'm on record that Cardale Jones is going to be the starting quarterback to start the season. They start off against Virginia Tech on September 7th. But you could make an argument easily for any of the three guys. Braxton, two-time Big Ten MVP. J.T. Barrett, one of the best seasons in Ohio State history, if not the best by an Ohio State quarterback. That's the Big Ten all-time record for touchdowns in a season with 45, breaking Drew Brees' mark. Cardale Jones leads them to the national championship. So you can make an argument for any of the three guys. I'm going with Cardale. Who do you think will start the season as the starter, and could there be some type of two-quarterback system, Tim?
Well, I'm sort of, I don't know if on the record's the right word. My sense all along has been that Cardale should be the starter or could be the starter at the beginning of the season, so he can start what he finished.
Right.
And it's almost like the line I keep using is like he deserves his parade. But Urban Meyer, man, he laid it out pretty good on Saturday after the spring game that this is going to be a competition, meaning the man with the best numbers, meaning, forget about gut feeling. He even said that, forget about having a gut feeling. He's not going to be doing that. He's going to be looking at who's productive. We were sitting there last preseason, and I remember I asked Tom Herman after that one Saturday practice, who's your backup quarterback now? And he said, in essence, J.T. Barrett just went around Cardale Jones that day, to be the backup quarterback behind Braxton, who was penciled in number one last year. And 3 days later, lo and behold, Braxton's right shoulder comes apart, and it makes me wince just saying that. But and then J.T. Barrett's a starter. That's how close Cardale was to being the guy last year, And the bottom line is, in most places, to be a starting quarterback for anybody, you've got to be a good practice player. You've got to show you can get done what they want done on the field before they let you do what you can do. And that's what J.T. Barrett showed you that, man. I'm not counting him out of this race at all. And, just look at the numbers last year. They don't lie.
Yeah, I think he has to play a little bit. I think if Cardale's a starter, which that's my prediction, as I said, you're saying the same thing. I think JT has to at least play. He can't just be over there sitting on the bench. If he's healthy, I think whether it's him mixing in, being the goal line quarterback, but I think it'll be more than that. I think that they'll find a way to get him in, not every other series or anything ridiculous like that, but I think they'll mix in and give JT some series when the game is on the line, early in the game, late in the game, but Cardale will be the starter. At least that's my take. It's going to see how it works out.
Dave, yeah. Let me interrupt you too. And the other thing, though, all these guys have things going for them. There's no doubt about it that when we watched that offense against Wisconsin, Alabama, and Oregon, there was a sense of explosiveness that maybe you didn't have before, and that was because Cardale could throw the ball 50 yards on a line like you and I throw a rock, across
over the mountains. He can throw it over the mountains over there.
Yeah, and then exactly, Uncle Rico. And the bottom line is, he and Devin Smith clearly. Devin Smith, Cardale had a great postseason, but Devin Smith really helped him, man. That first catch against Wisconsin was Devin Smith making a play on an underthrown ball, and Devin Smith just lost him. That lost both of them. Devin Smith might end up being a first-round draft pick just based on the way he played in those last three games more than anything else. And And so they helped each other. They scratched each other's back. But there was no sense that it looked like as the thing went on, defenses were laying back a little bit more, which opened things up even more for Ezekiel Elliott. And but I argue also the game that really put them over the hump, the Penn State win was great because for J.T. Barrett, because he went in there with a bum knee and had 2 rushing touchdowns in overtime, and that's when that team really came together. But then in the second quarter at Michigan State, in the game they had to have, clearly couldn't lose the rest of the way, but that was the hump game. He had 2 huge throws in the second quarter of that game. The first on that slant to Michael Thomas, who took it to the house, who had an underrated season, by the way, even though he did lead the team in receptions. And then the bomb to Devin Smith just before halftime. Those were 2 huge throws. I mean, J.T. Barrett can throw and run when he needs to. As everybody watched from the frigid tundra of Minnesota last year, saw him go, what was that, 81 or whatever it was, 85. It's all of these guys can do what you need done to have a big-time offense. But it's the thing about Braxton is I think Braxton was a better passer than some people remember because they remember some of the bad throws. But, he still completed more than a 60% clip in 2013. But then on top of that, as we all know, Braxton can take any broken play and turn it into an instant touchdown. He's proven that time and again. So they all have their attractiveness, and they're all a little bit different. I think this is going to be a very, very arguable and interesting way to find a starting quarterback. It's going to be very interesting.
This is amazing. This is even a legitimate question, and maybe some people think it's not a legitimate question, but I'm going to play along and say that it is. Buckeyes or the field to win the 2015 national championship? Who you got, Tim May?
Wow, the field is very attractive, only because Ohio State came from the field last year, and by the end of the year, as we all know, they matured into, in my opinion, the best team in the country. I mean, all you got to do is turn on the tape. Offensive line, defensive line, the way the secondary played, the way Ezekiel Elliott played, the way the quarterbacks played, and the wide receivers, of course. I mean, anybody ever have a greater game and not necessarily as a receiver in one game than Evan Spencer in the Alabama game? I don't think so. That block he made that's one of the greatest blocks in college football history on that 85-yard Ezekiel Elliott touchdown run. But, man, they got so many guys back. But, boy, to do it all over again, Dave, I keep reminding people, that Michigan game was in doubt going into the fourth quarter last year. And J.T. Barrett's laying on the floor, And when Cardale Jones first came in, I think he got stoned for no gain or whatever it was. It was like a 3rd and 4 or something. And but then he hands off to Ezekiel Elliott on the next possession. Elliott goes 41 yards, and that's when the rush started, pardon the pun, but that is when the rush started to the national championship. There are teams that are going to get better as the year goes along. Alabama's going to be one. Alabama's loaded with talent, man. I think LSU is loaded with talent. But I think going into the season, you gotta look at Ohio State as the favorite. I think you agree with me, don't you?
I'm with you on that. I think I would take the field, but if I'm taking one team to win, I'm picking Ohio State. And there's no question about it. I think, and everybody's going to have them preseason number one, but yeah, I think there's a really good chance Ohio State is going to repeat. That said, it's so tough to do, and if I had to pick Ohio State or the field, I would have to play the odds and pick the field. But again, I think the Buckeyes have a pretty good shot at doing it, being the first team since Nebraska to be able to repeat. So we'll see if first team since Alabama. I forgot about your boys. First team since Alabama to repeat.
Well, what I was bringing up, what I was leading to a while ago, is too, you gotta, like I said about that Michigan game, was more competitive than most people remember. That was not a very good Michigan team. And now they go to Michigan on the regular season finale this year. Kind of reminds you of 1969. I keep bringing that up. That was a team that wasn't a great Michigan team under a new head football coach named Bo Schembechler. And now you got a Michigan team that's trying to find any kind of quarterback. And under new coach Jim Harbaugh, a Bo Schembechler disciple, without a doubt. And that's going to be a huge game, baby.
That's going to spice up the rivalry. It already has spiced up the rivalry. How about Ohio State upstaging Michigan. Michigan introduces Harbaugh. They had all the buzz, and Ohio State goes out and wins the national championship a couple of weeks after that. But that's going to be a lot of fun. It makes our job a lot more fun. It's great for the rivalry. And, man, the rivalry needed a boost. Michigan had been so down. I think Harbaugh's going to do well there. I'm assuming you feel the same way, that he's going to win. You think he'll win big there?
I think he's going to be – I think he's – it's hard to project the future, but just based on what he's done, he wore out his welcome at San Francisco. But what he did at Stanford, in college conditions, as I call it, a place that's very difficult to get really good football players because of the academic standards, et cetera. I think I don't know why he wouldn't be good at Michigan. The one thing, on top of everything else, obviously the key to college football is recruiting. Nick Saban will tell you that. Urban Meyer will tell you that. Woody Hayes would have told you that. Bear Bryant would have told you that. How good a recruiter is going to be remains to be seen, I think. The first results from the first class, I don't think were very good. I don't know if you agree with me or not. I wouldn't have given them a very good grade for what they got done there in those 2 months. But he can definitely coach, man. He can definitely get guys to play football. And as somebody pointed out this week, with the fallout coming from the San Francisco 49ers now that he's gone, Alex Boone made some comments too. But bottom line is you only have a college football player for 4, maybe 5 years. So by the time you start to really get in their head, they're gone,
Well, I could talk football with you for hours upon hours, but I've already kept you about twice as long as I promised, so I guess I'll let you go. Great stuff out of Tim May from the Columbus Dispatch. I'm sure if you're listening to this show, you already read his stuff. If not, read his stuff. Columbus Dispatch. You also can follow him on Twitter at Tim May Sports. Again, that's at Tim May Sports. Tim, thank you very much for your time, my friend.
Sure, man. I eagerly await the check that's going to be coming my way pretty shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It'll be under $1. It'll be one of those, those penny checks. But it'll be in the mail soon.
Like Seinfeld got from Japan. I got you, man. I got you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have to have a Seinfeld reference. I'm glad you threw that in there. All right. Well, thanks to all the listeners out there. Appreciate you guys tuning into the show. Take it away, best damn band in the land.